Tonight, somewhere in the world, someone is standing over a body. They don't know what to do with their hands. They don't know what to say. They feel an overwhelming pull to do something, anything, to mark what just happened. And here is what's strange about that feeling. It is not modern. It is not cultural. It is not taught. It is somewhere between 300,000 and 400,000 years old. Death has always done this to you. It has always forced your hand. Long before you had language, long before you had gods or priests or funeral homes or flowers wrapped in plastic, your ancestors were already doing something with their dead. Something deliberate. Something that took effort. Something that tells us, across hundreds of thousands of years of silence, that your brain has always refused to treat a dead person as just a body. The question is, what exactly did they do? And why does it still echo in every funeral you have ever attended? Archaeologist Paul Pettit has spent decades trying to answer this. He calls it mortuary behavior, the cluster of actions a group takes when one of its members dies. And what he found, digging through sites across Africa, Europe, and the Middle East, is that this behavior is far older and far stranger than anyone expected. Let's go back 430,000 years. You are in what is now northern Spain. The site is called Atapuerca. A group of early humans, not yet fully modern, probably Homo heidelbergensis, carried at least 28 bodies deep into a cave. The shaft is called the Cima de los Huesos, the pit of bones. They did not drag them there by accident. The bodies were lowered into darkness, and beside them, researchers found a single hand axe, bright red quartzite, perfectly crafted. It had no practical use at that location. It was placed there. Archaeologist Juan Luis Arzuaga, who excavated the site, believes it was left intentionally, a kind of offering, the first known gift given to the dead. Think about what that means. These were not fully modern humans. Their brains were structured differently from yours. They could not do what you do, and yet something in them looked at death and felt the need to respond, to place something, to mark it, to say, this matters. That instinct is yours too. Move forward now. 100,000 years ago, you are in a cave in southern Israel called Kavzeh. Archaeologists found something extraordinary here. A child, buried deliberately, and cradled in the child's arms, the antlers of a deer. The antlers were too large to have fallen there by accident. They were placed. Someone arranged them around the child's body before covering the grave. Researcher Francesco De Rico, who studies symbolic behavior in early humans, interprets this as evidence of something profound. The people who buried that child were not just disposing of a body. They were telling a story. They were saying something about who that child was, or where that child was going. You still do this. You still place things in coffins. You still choose what someone wears. You still tuck in blankets and photographs and objects that meant something. You are doing the same thing those people did 100,000 years ago, and you do it for the same reason. Because a body without context feels unbearable. Because the dead need to be sent somewhere, even when you don't know where that somewhere is. Now here's where it gets stranger. Not every ancient group buried their dead. Some did the opposite. At a site called Krapina in Croatia, Neanderthal bones were found smashed. Deliberately. Marrow extracted. Signs of cutting and defleshing. For decades, researchers assumed this was cannibalism, violence, but anthropologist Jörg Orschiet reanalyzed the evidence and proposed something different. The bones may have been processed as part of a ritual, a secondary burial practice where flesh was removed from the bones so the bones themselves could be kept, moved, or honored separately. Your own culture does something like this. In parts of Madagascar, there is a practice called famadihana, the turning of the bones. Families exhume their ancestors every few years, rewrap the remains in fresh cloth, dance with them, update them on what has happened in the family. It is joyful. It is not morbid. It is a conversation with the dead. And it is almost certainly a version of what humans were doing tens of thousands of years ago. Death, for most of human history, was not an ending. It was a transition into a different kind of relationship. Here is what that means for you. Your discomfort at funerals is not weakness. Your instinct to touch the body or not to touch it, to say the wrong thing, to not know where to look, that is not a social failure. That is 300,000 years of behavior running through you at once. Your brain does not know what a funeral home is. Your brain knows what it has always known. Something has changed, something important is gone, and there must be a response. Psychologist Thomas Attig, who studies grief theory, argues that mourning is fundamentally about relearning the world. When someone dies, your internal model of reality is wrong. You reach for your phone to call them. You expect to hear them in the next room. Your brain built its understanding of the world with them in it. And now it must rebuild. The rituals are not decoration. The rituals are the rebuilding process. The Neanderthals knew this. The people at Kavzeh knew it. The humans at Atapuerca who lowered bodies into darkness knew it. Ritual is not superstition. Ritual is a tool your species invented to manage the most disorienting experience a brain can have. And here is the counterintuitive truth that the archaeology reveals. The grander and more elaborate the funeral ritual, the more social complexity the group had. The two are directly linked. Paul Petit's research shows that as human groups got larger, as social bonds became more complex, as more people depended on more people, the rituals got bigger. More flowers, more ceremony, more days of mourning, more distance between the death and the burial. The funeral is not just about the dead person. It is about binding the living together after a shared loss. It is social glue, disguised as grief. This is why when you attend a funeral and find yourself laughing at a shared memory, you feel guilty for a moment. And then you feel something shift. The tension in the room changes. People exhale. Suddenly, everyone is talking. Suddenly, there is food. Suddenly, it feels almost like a reunion, not just a loss. That is not disrespect. That is your ancient brain doing exactly what it evolved to do. Binding the group, pulling the living toward each other, using the death of one to reinforce the life of everyone else. 70,000 years ago, at a site called Border Cave in South Africa, a baby was buried with a perforated shell. The shell had been strung, worn as jewelry, then deliberately placed in the grave. That baby was given something precious, something that cost effort to make, something that said, this small life mattered, this small person was known, this small person is not forgotten. You are still doing that. Every headstone, every obituary, every name carved into stone, every online memorial that a stranger stumbles across and leaves a single comment on. You are still saying the same thing those humans said 70,000 years ago, placing a shell in the dark beside someone too young to have worn it. The truth of what ancient humans did when someone died is not morbid. It is not dark. It is not primitive. It is the most human thing in the fossil record. They stopped. They gathered. They marked the moment. They placed something precious in the dark. They refused to let the dead disappear without ceremony. And tonight, wherever in the world someone is standing over a body, not knowing what to do with their hands, they are doing exactly that. They are carrying something 300,000 years old in their chest, and the weight of it is not grief alone. It is memory. It is connection. It is the species recognizing itself in the face of what it has always feared most, and choosing, as it always has, to gather.